Rotenburg, Germany, a town with rolling hills and cobblestone streets, but in 2001 its peace was shattered by a story so grotesque it seemed ripped from the pages of a horror novel. This is the story of Armin Meiwes, a man whose craving for human flesh led him to commit one of the most shocking crimes in modern history. The cannibal of Rotenburg didn't just kill, he found a willing victim, and together they made a pact that would shock the world. Armin Meiwes was born in 1961, the product of a troubled household. His father abandoned the family when he was a child, leaving him in the care of an overbearing mother. Isolated and lonely, Meiwes retreated into a world of dark fantasies. By the time he reached adulthood, these fantasies had evolved into an obsession, the idea of consuming human flesh. For years, Meiwes kept his desires hidden, living an unassuming life as a computer technician in the small town of Rotenburg. But behind closed doors, his thoughts grew darker. He began frequenting online forums devoted to cannibalism, connecting with others who shared this taboo fascination. It was on one of those that Meiwes found someone who would change his life and his crime forever. Bernd Jorgen Brandes, a man who didn't just tolerate Meiwes' desires but volunteered to fulfill them. In March 2001, Meiwes and Brandes exchanged messages online discussing the details of their plan. Brandes was an engineer from Berlin, and he too harbored dark fantasies. He wanted to be eaten, believing it would bring him a twisted form of immortality. The man agreed to meet at Meiwes' isolated farmhouse in Rotenburg, where their pact would be carried out. The events that unfolded are almost too grotesque to comprehend. Meiwes documented the encounter with meticulous care, even filming portions of it. Brandes willingly consumed sleeping pills and alcohol to dull the pain as the horrifying act began. In a chilling display of consent, Brandes reportedly encouraged Meiwes, ensuring that every step of the plan was deliberate and mutual. What followed was an act of cannibalism that defied comprehension. Meiwes dismembered Brandes' body, preserving parts of it in his freezer and consuming it over several months. He later described the experience as fulfilling a lifelong dream, claiming it gave him a sense of connection and control he had never felt before. For months, Meiwes continued living his life as if nothing had happened, but his secrets wouldn't stay buried. In 2002, Meiwes returned to the cannibalism forums, sharing details of his crime and seeking a new volunteer. These posts caught the attention of another forum member who reported him to the police. When authorities raided Meiwes' farmhouse, they discovered a scene straight out of a nightmare. Freezer bags filled with human flesh, blood-stained tools, and the infamous video documenting Brady's death were among the evidence. Meiwes confessed immediately, cooperating with the investigators and recounting the crime in chilling detail. The case quickly became a global sensation. The idea of a consensual killing and the act of cannibalism raised questions that extended beyond the criminal into the ethical and psychological. Was this murder, or was it something else entirely? Armin Meiwes stood trial in 2004, and the legal proceedings were as controversial as the crime itself. His defense argued that the act was consensual and that Brandes' participation made it unique, but prosecutors maintained that no one could truly consent to such an act, framing it as premeditated murder. Meiwes was initially convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. However, after a retrial in 2006, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. The court ruled that Brandes' consent was irrelevant, emphasizing the moral and legal boundaries Meiwes had crossed. Today, Meiwes serves his sentence in a German prison. He has expressed regret for his actions and even warned others against following in his footsteps. Despite this, his case remains a chilling reminder of the darkest depths of human behavior. The story of Armin Meiwes is not just one of murder, but of a pact so disturbing it forces us to confront the limits of consent, mortality, and human desire. The Cannibal of Rotenburg will forever be remembered as a man whose twisted hunger led him to turn fantasy into horrifying reality. The case of Armin Meiwes is as haunting as it is incomprehensible. A tale of obsession, consent, and a crime that redefined the boundaries of human depravity.